Alrighty, the Me Too, my take on it and the causes of it, and let's take full responsibility, shall we? Because it's the only way to thrive and keep going and improve, otherwise you'll attract it again. What's going on in the body? Well, I've recently learned, and as anyone who has a water filter will realize, that they have a significantly better health as a result. Because if we have a look at what's the heavy metals and the density in the garbages in just tap water alone, you'll find out when you use a distilling machine that you will get a tablespoon of black mucus plaque and heavy metal density gunk per week. That adds up, I did the calculations, to 1.5 kilos a year. Times that by 10, you're at 15 kilos per decade. I'm 40, I've cleansed and got all that stuff out. That's why I thrive and look sexy and attract the same. And if we're 40, we can have up to 60 kilos of black mucus plaque in our large intestine and the bottom half of our body, and therefore our reproductive system, which is therefore linked to the large intestine along to the gallbladder, which is connected to the right side of the liver. That's the masculinity side. So guess what? If our mind's choices have decided and resulted in adding in a bucket load more mucus forming foods, because we're unable to get rid of it because most people's nervous system is cut off up here, they're completely unaware of their bottom half of their body, and that's 95% of them, at least, unless they're, and unless we've got a third eye awake and are enlightened, we have zero connection with our body and we're unable to think, because it's the way the chakras endocrine system work. So guess what's going to happen? We're going to be overtly masculine because our subconscious body is completely focused on getting rid of our toxicity from our gallbladder and our large intestinal reproductive system. What happens with that over time with any circuit or any circuitry in any electrical conductivity or the body? It cuts off, because it's completely got no conductivity to get rid of inflammation or to actually find out and detoxify it to get the messages back to the brain. So we are completely unaware of what's in our bodies until we take full responsibility for that. And unless a person is detoxifying daily and has been doing rectal colonics, detoxifying daily, well, ideally for years, they have a bucket load of black mucus plaque gunk in there that they don't realize. The signs for that? Victim mentality. Everyone's a victim. Oh, it's all my fault, poor me. We're still connected to the matrix. We don't even realize our soul or our soul's purpose. Big ones. All right, another one, sex for a few minutes, and we're not having any orgasmic pleasure at all, or it's like totally located to one tiny little bit for a few seconds. Rolling orgasm as an orgasmic bliss is your birthright. You've got to earn it. You clean your body to do that. So if a person who has chosen to be, whose mind's choices have resulted in acquiring more mucus than that by eating a ridiculous amount of mucus forming foods and not detoxifying, then guess what they're going to attract? They're a massive victim, completely stuck in the stories from a whole bunch of heavy metal densities and a ridiculous amount of hundreds of meters of parasites in their intestines, and they're completely in the lower half of their body, and they're not sweating or getting these things out. Guess what? They're contributing to that even more. And we have now got over 100,000 environmental toxins that we know about. And of course, there are a bucket load more because they're the ones that you have to know to test for. And of course, we're getting 8,000 more every year. And with Wi-Fi happening as well, if we don't have a solid grounding, and I mean a solid butt and abs, then it's completely impossible for our nervous system to get through all of that black mucus plaque to actually know what's there. The mental and emotional effects of these are significant victim depression. And if we're depressed and our nervous system circuitry is cutting off from life, and as we know from, say, Jurassic Park and everything else that's nature, if something is going to die, nature finds a way for us to survive. Some way. And if we've got kilometers of parasites and black mucus plaque in our body, which the majority do, they're completely unaware of it, and if the sign for that is you can't control your own mind, guess what? That's 95 to 99%. And what's going to happen? Well, they're already causing drama in their own lives because their frequencies for the messages to come back to the brain goes all the way down to the feet from Mother Nature and back up if they're connected to it. But if they're only connected up here or even less, like scientists and morbidly obese people, they're a walking head using maximum of 2% of their brain capacity, which is completely full of parasites and viruses and heavy metal density. So they have no idea what's in the bottom half of their body. So nature has to find a way to, and the only way that they can perceive anything is through drama and shock value. They will get a shock to their nervous system. They will attract it, and they'll attract it repeatedly until they take responsibility for fixing and nourishing that and changing diets and nutrition and detoxification. Colonic irrigation is a magic way to do that. But if we're stuck in our stories and we're constantly projecting the victim stories, oh, I got sexually assaulted, I got this, I mean, we're taking responsibility for fixing it in the body, not just constantly repeating the same stories, guess what's going to happen? You'll get another shock. It'll happen again. And because there's nothing down there, if we haven't got a connection to our sexuality and our spirituality, there is no growth. And of course, the inevitable result is a complete cutting off of our gender, and our feminine and our masculine stories will be completely disgusting and filthy and black, and we'll be completely confused because we cannot see anything, because we can't perceive our own body and our own nervous system circuitry. The end result of that is a massive gallbladder toxicity, and will be overtly masculine. How do you know? You haven't attracted a masculine man. Simple, really. Or if you do, you'll end up emasculating them because they're weak and they don't have a strong sense of themselves and their masculinity. And of course, if we don't have muscle tone, then there's mucus there. It's just the way the body works. So until we take full responsibility for these things, it will completely happen again. And then if we're victim mentality, whinging and complaining about this, it will happen again because you're projecting that out into your world. And every man on the planet wants a feminine woman. Any feminine woman wants a masculine man. Isn't that the way that these things work? Ideally, a complete human. Because we have to take care of our feminine side as well. Of course, we've got to nurture and nourish. Our body is yin, it's part of Mother Nature, it is feminine. Everything we can touch is feminine. But if our nervous system which is masculine, or an ether element, some people call God, cannot touch these parts of the body, which is very heavy metal dense, and we're putting on kilos of weight, it's not weight, it's not fat, it's black mucus plaque, then we're going to co-create that and our body doesn't feel it. So, the only really way is to detoxify and fix yourself, because if we're complaining and thinking that we're healing ourselves by repeating the stories, that's masculine. Can't touch it. So the nervous system is only getting a part of it, and will never get completely healed until we get it out of the body and we've touched it and processed the stories, ideally in a setting where we can either deal with it ourselves or with a healer or a friend or someone who knows how to deal with these things. If we go out in public and then go putting it on the internet, that's essentially spiritual gossiping. And it's very low vibrational and spreading out a whole lot of garbage. So if we're externally blaming every man that we've ever slept with and then going for a walk of guilt and shame, that means you've got a lot of heavy metals and black density heavy metals in this part of the body, because you've got stimulated in the reproductive system. And what's there? A bucket load of density. Meters, possibly tens or sometimes hundreds of meters of parasites and things there that stimulates the rest of the endocrine system or chakra system to send the messages to the brain. And if because the thyroid is destroyed, if you don't have iodine supplements and fix up the whole metabolism, the thyroid just doesn't work. The head is disconnected from the rest of the body. So the individual will start to project their stories, constantly repeating them. And, we're not 5-year-old children with fairy tale stories anymore. Let's own it. Got to fix it in the body. Otherwise, we'll be constantly repeating the whole stories again. So let's stop blaming everything masculine in the world, or the patriarchy stories, because we've got a toxic gallbladder. and we're completely disconnected from our feminine or our masculine hormones and our nervous system down here and our gut rhythms. Fix it up, own it, do it yourself with some assistance from someone who knows. There's only a few of those. Otherwise, we're doomed to repeat it, and we're putting that out into our world, making it a worse world with much more low vibrational density and emotions. And being yin, you're going to attract it even more. So, there's my take on it. It's in the body. It's how it works. If you're going through your stories, own it. Follow through with the action, because if it's just stories, it's just ether. There's no ether. The ether element comes from being grounded and getting it out of the body and in connection with Mother Nature. It's a 5-element theory. I've read it. It's how it works. So, own it. And I don't need your projections. It doesn't help me. I'm just providing information and from a high level of consciousness so you can actually take responsibility for it. So, feel free to do so.